In the vast emptiness of space, Commander Duwan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Voyager. His antennae swayed gently as he watched the holographic display before him. The ancient fleet they had discovered floated silently in the darkness, their hulls as black as the void itself. The ships were massive, their designs unlike anything the Confederation had encountered before. They stretched for kilometers, their surfaces marked with strange patterns that seemed to absorb even the faintest starlight. Duwan's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the mysterious vessels. "Fascinating," he muttered, his outer mandibles clicking softly. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the only sounds being the soft hum of equipment and occasional beeps from the scanning systems. His science officer, Harin, approached with a data tablet. Her scales shifted color from deep blue to a lighter shade, indicating her excitement. "Commander, our initial scans are complete," she said, her tail swishing back and forth. "These vessels appear to be approximately 10,000 years old, possibly older." Duwan turned to face her, his antennae perking up with interest. "Tell me more, Officer Harin. The hull composition is unlike anything in our database," she continued, bringing up detailed diagrams on the main view screen. "The metal alloy seems primitive at first glance, but there's something unusual about its molecular structure. Still, given their age, they're remarkably well preserved." The commander moved closer to the screen, studying the technical readouts. The ships showed no signs of battle damage or wear, despite their age. It was as if they had been placed there deliberately, waiting to be found. "Life support systems?" Duwan asked, his outer mandibles twitching with curiosity. "None detected, Commander. The ships appear to be completely powered down. No energy signatures, no active systems. They're essentially floating museums." Harin's scales rippled with pride at the discovery. "Speaking of museums, these would make excellent additions to the Confederation's historical fleet collection." Duwan nodded slowly, already imagining the recognition this find would bring to his crew. The Confederation valued historical artifacts highly, and discovering an entire fleet of ancient vessels would certainly advance his career. "What about internal scans?" "The whole composition is interfering with our deep scans," Harin replied, showing him another set of readings. "We can make out basic internal structures, but nothing detailed. We'll need to send boarding teams to get a better look." The commander walked to the front of the bridge, gazing out at the mysterious fleet through the transparent viewing panel. The ships were arranged in a perfect formation, as if they had been positioned with precise calculation. Something about their arrangement seemed almost intentional. "Prepare 3 salvage teams," Duwan ordered, turning to his operations officer. "Full environmental suits and standard exploration equipment. I want detailed scans of every compartment before we begin any salvage operations." The bridge crews sprang into action, coordinating the preparation of the boarding teams. Duwan watched as small shuttles began launching from the Stellar Voyager's hangar bay, their lights tiny pinpoints against the darkness of space. "Commander," Harin called out, her scales shifting to a worried green. "I'm detecting some unusual readings from the largest vessel. They're very faint." But what, officer?" "The readings. They almost look like coding sequences. Very old, very complex coding sequences." Her tail twitched nervously. "Should we perhaps conduct more remote scans before sending in the teams?" Duwan considered her words for a moment, but his desire for recognition outweighed his caution. "Proceed with the boarding operation. Whatever technology they used, it's thousands of years old. Nothing we can't handle." As the salvage shuttles approached the largest vessel, Duwan felt a slight tingling in his antennae. He dismissed it as excitement, unaware that he was about to make first contact with something far beyond his understanding. The first shuttle reached the ancient ship's hull, extending its docking apparatus. The crew watched in anticipation as the salvage team prepared to board what they believed would be their greatest discovery. They had no way of knowing they were about to wake something that had been patiently waiting for millennia, something that would change their understanding of history forever. Officer Jeho sat at his monitoring station, carefully tracking the salvage team's progress. His fingers moved swiftly across the holographic controls as he kept watch over their vital signs and environmental readings. Everything seemed normal until a faint flicker caught his attention. "Commander," Jeho called out, his voice tight with concern. "I'm detecting unusual power signatures from the target vessel. They appear to be increasing." Do-1 moved quickly to Jeho's station, his antennae twitching forward in alarm. The readings were clear. Energy levels were rising throughout the ancient ship systems. What had been dead and silent for thousands of years was somehow coming alive. The massive vessel's hull began to change. Lines of soft blue energy spread across its surface like glowing veins, creating intricate patterns that pulsed with growing intensity. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. "All teams, return to base immediately," Do-1 ordered through the command channel. "This is not a drill. Return to base now." Warning klaxons suddenly blared across all Confederation vessels. Red emergency lights flashed as their sensors detected multiple defense systems activating throughout the ancient fleet. One by one, each derelict ship began to glow with the same ethereal blue energy. Harin stared at her readings in disbelief, her scales shifting to a pale yellow of shock. "Impossible," she whispered, double-checking her instruments. "These ships shouldn't have any power left. Their cores should have died millennia ago." The salvage team shuttles were halfway back when the first energy shield appeared, shimmering like a soap bubble around the largest vessel. More shields followed, surrounding each ship in the mysterious fleet with protective barriers far more advanced than anything the Confederation possessed. "Shield technology unknown," Harin reported, her voice shaking slightly. "The energy readings, they're beyond our scale of measurement." The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the ancient vessels began to move, their massive forms shifting into new positions with impossible grace. Their engines left no heat signatures, no radiation trails. They simply moved as if space itself was bending around them. A deep thrumming sound filled the bridge, making everyone's bones vibrate. The communication systems crackled, and a voice emerged from the static. It spoke in an unknown language, the words carrying weight and authority even before the translators could decode them. "Security Protocol Alpha engage. Unauthorized access detected." The voice was neither mechanical nor organic. It seemed to exist somewhere between the two. The translators struggled for several seconds before adapting to the ancient language patterns. "Commander," Jeho called out, his fingers flying over his console. "All our scanning systems are being blocked. Something is actively countering every frequency we try to use." Do-1 fought to maintain his composure as he watched his discovery turn into a potential crisis. "Defensive positions," he ordered. "But do not, I repeat, do not fire unless fired upon. We don't know what we're dealing with." The Confederation ships moved into a standard defense formation, their weapons powered but not targeted. The ancient fleet responded by adjusting its own formation, mirroring their movements with precise coordination that spoke of highly advanced tactical systems. "Harin," Do-1 turned to his science officer. "What are we facing here?" Her scales had shifted to a deep blue of concentration as she analyzed the data streaming across her screens. "The technology is unlike anything in our records, Commander. These ships aren't just awakening. They're adapting, learning. The power signatures are evolving as we watch." The voice came again, this time clearer. "Identify yourselves. State your intentions." Before Do-1 could respond, every screen on the bridge filled with strange symbols and diagrams. The ancient ships were scanning them, but not with any technology they could detect or block. "They're inside our systems," Jeho reported, his voice steady despite the situation. "But they're not attacking. They're reading us." The blue energy patterns on the ancient ships pulsed brighter, and Do-1 realized that what they had thought was a simple salvage mission had just become something far more significant. They hadn't discovered abandoned relics. They had awakened something that had been waiting, watching, and preparing for this moment. In the silence of space, two civilizations faced each other, one thinking itself advanced, the other proving just how wrong that assumption had been. The real question was, what would happen next? In the dimly lit research bay of the stellar Voyager, research specialist Tai Yang hunched over his workstation, his eyes burning from hours of staring at holographic symbols. Around him, screens displayed countless images of the mysterious markings from the ancient fleet. He had been working nonstop since the ships had awakened, trying to decode their origins. The gentle hum of the ship's engines provided a steady background noise as he cross-referenced the symbols with every known language in the Confederation database. His fingers moved swiftly across the floating keyboard, entering sequence after sequence. Suddenly, he sat up straight. His heart began to race as the computer displayed a match he never expected to see. He checked the results 3 times to be sure, then called for Commander Du-1. Minutes later, Du-1 entered the research bay with Ho-Rin close behind. The commander's antennae were still twitching nervously after the recent awakening of the fleet. "This better be important, Specialist Tai Yang," Du-1 said, his outer mandibles clicking with impatience. Tai Yang nodded eagerly, pulling up his findings on the main display. "Commander, these symbols. They're ancient human script. I'm certain of it." Du-1 made a sound that resembled a laugh. "Humans, those primitive beings who barely managed spaceflight. Impossible." He waved one of his upper limbs dismissively. "They're still using chemical rockets to reach their own moon." "Please, Commander, look at this," Tai Yang insisted, displaying a series of ancient records he had discovered. The holographic images showed detailed schematics and historical documents. These ships were part of something called the Guardian Fleet, built during humanity's first golden age. Ho-Rin moved closer to the display, her scales shifting to a deep purple of intense interest. The legends of the first golden age were true, she whispered, her tail swishing back and forth with excitement. Tai Yang pulled up more records, his hand shaking slightly with the magnitude of his discovery. According to these documents, humans achieved interstellar travel far earlier than we thought. They built this fleet during the peak of their civilization, approximately 12,000 years ago. "But that's impossible," Du-1 protested, though with less certainty now. "Human civilization barely dates back 6,000 years. We have extensive archaeological records." "Of their second rise," Tai Yang interrupted, then quickly added, "Sir, these records suggest the human civilization rose, fell, and is rising again. The Guardian Fleet was created just before their first collapse." The 3 of them stood in silence, watching as more information scrolled across the screens. The ancient records told a story that contradicted everything they thought they knew about human history. Ho-Rin studied the technical specifications with growing amazement. "The engineering principles here, they're beyond anything we currently possess. The power systems alone would revolutionize our understanding of physics. Look at this section." Tai Yang pointed to a particular document. They knew their civilization was about to collapse, some kind of catastrophe they couldn't prevent. So they built this fleet and programmed it to wait, to protect something. "Protect what?" Du-1 asked, his earlier skepticism giving way to genuine curiosity. Tai Yang shook his head. "The records don't say specifically, but they mention something called the legacy multiple times. Whatever it is, it was important enough to build an automated fleet to guard it for thousands of years." Ho-Rin's scales rippled with a pattern that indicated deep thought. "This explains the advanced defensive systems we encountered. The ships weren't derelict. They were dormant, waiting for the right moment." "Or the wrong one," Du-1 added quietly. "When we tried to board them, we might have been seen as a threat to whatever they're protecting." Tai Yang brought up another set of images, these showing the interior layout of the vessels. "The design is incredibly efficient. Every system has multiple backups, and the AI controlling them. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It's not just programmed, it's adaptive, learning." The implications of their discovery began to sink in. If these ships were indeed built by ancient humans, it meant that humanity's current technological state wasn't their peak. It was just another step in their return to their former glory. "Commander," Herin said, her voice serious, "we need to contact Earth. Their governments need to know about this. This isn't just a historical discovery, it's their heritage." Do-Won nodded slowly, his antennae moving in a pattern that showed deep consideration. "Agreed. But we need to be careful how we present this. The political implications alone." He trailed off as new symbols appeared on their screens. The ancient fleet was communicating again. But this time, the message was different. This time, it was meant for humanity's descendants. The three Confederation officers watched in silence, knowing they were witnessing a moment that would change galactic history forever. Somewhere in those massive ships lay the truth about humanity's past, and possibly the key to their future. The message from the Confederation Council flashed across Do-Won's private screen, its contents making his antennae droop. He read it 3 times, hoping he had misunderstood, but the orders were clear. "Acquire the ancient fleet by any means necessary." "They can't be serious," he muttered, looking out at the massive vessels that floated peacefully before them. After learning of their human origins, taking them by force seemed not just dangerous but wrong. Herin stood beside him, her scales showing patches of worried gray. "Commander, if those ships are as advanced as we think, a forceful approach could be disastrous." "I know," Do-Won replied, his outer mandibles clicking in frustration. "But orders are orders." He activated the ship-wide communication system, his heart heavy with reluctance. "All units, prepare to disable and board the target vessels. Weapons set to minimum power. We want to capture, not destroy." The Confederation fleet moved into attack formation, their engines glowing as they surrounded the ancient ships. Do-Won watched as his weapons officers powered up their systems, preparing for what they hoped would be a quick operation. "Sir," Jai-Ho called from his station, "the ancient fleet is changing." The massive vessels had begun to move, their formation shifting with impossible grace. The blue energy patterns on their hulls pulsed faster, creating stunning displays that rippled across their surfaces. "First warning shot," Do-Won commanded. "Let's see how they react." A Confederation cruiser fired a low-power energy burst toward the space between the ancient ships. Before the shot could cross even half the distance, it simply vanished. No explosion, no dispersion. It just ceased to exist. "What just happened?" Do-Won demanded. "Unknown, sir," Herin reported, her scales now pale with shock. "The energy reading, it's as if space itself absorbed the shot." The ancient fleet responded. Their shields activated, but they weren't like any shields the Confederation had seen. Instead of the usual energy barriers, the space around each ship seemed to fold, creating distortions that bent light itself. "Multiple energy signatures detected," Jai-Ho announced, his voice steady despite the situation. "They're powering up something, but our sensors can't identify what." Suddenly, 3 Confederation ships dropped out of formation, their engines dead. They had been precisely disabled by weapons no one had seen fire. "Impossible," Herin whispered. "Those ships were in hyperspace formation. Nothing can target a ship preparing for hyperspace jump." The ancient fleet moved again, creating a pattern that surrounded the Confederation forces. More ships lost power, their systems shut down by technology that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. "By the stars," Jai-Ho breathed, staring at his readings. "What are we dealing with?" Do-Won knew he had to act fast. "All ships, stand down. Power down weapons." "This is Commander Do-Won. Cease all hostile actions immediately." The remaining Confederation ships complied, their weapon systems powering down. The ancient fleet responded by stopping their advance, though their strange shields remained active. A new message appeared on every screen in the fleet, written in both ancient human script and modern Confederation language. "Aggressive action noted. Final warning issued. Further hostile intent will result in complete neutralization. Commander, Herin said, her voice filled with awe. These ships, they could have destroyed us at any moment. They chose not to. Do-1 nodded slowly. They're not just defending themselves. They're showing restraint. Intelligence. He turned to his communication officer. Send a message to the Council. Tell them any attempt to seize these vessels by force would be inadvisable. The disabled Confederation ships began powering up again, their systems restored as if they had never been touched. It was another demonstration, not just of power, but of control and purpose. Look at this, Jai-Ho called out, pointing to his screen. The ancient fleet had resumed its original formation, but now a new energy pattern was visible. They're generating some kind of field. It's protecting our ships from normal space radiation. They're helping us. Do-1 watched as the ancient vessels continued their silent vigil, their technology so far beyond current understanding that it appeared almost magical. He had seen enough to know that these ships weren't just relics to be claimed. They were guardians of something far more important. The real question was, what were they guarding? And why had humanity's ancestors gone to such lengths to protect it deep within the largest vessel of the ancient fleet? Herin sat at a floating console that had emerged from the ship's walls. Her scales shimmered with excitement as streams of data flowed across the holographic screens. The ship's AI had granted her limited access to its database after the Confederation proved they meant no harm. The chamber around her pulsed with soft blue light, creating patterns that seemed to respond to her thoughts. Do-1 stood nearby, his antennae moving gently as he watched the information unfold. Commander, Herin called out, her voice filled with wonder. I found something. The true purpose of this fleet. Her claws moved swiftly across the interface, bringing up ancient records and diagrams. Images filled the room, showing Earth as it had been 12,000 years ago. A world of incredible cities that reached into the clouds, vessels that traveled between stars as easily as modern ships crossed oceans. They were so advanced, Herin breathed. But they saw something coming, a catastrophe they couldn't prevent. She brought up more records, her scales shifting to deeper blues as she read. Solar storms, climate shifts, and something else, something they called the Great Darkness. Do-1 moved closer, studying the images. They built this fleet as a response. More than that, Herin replied. It was an insurance policy. They knew their civilization would fall, but they refused to let everything they had learned be lost. She displayed more data, showing the intricate planning that had gone into the fleet's creation. The records revealed how the ancient humans had worked tirelessly, pooling their remaining resources to create ships that could survive millennia. They had developed AI systems that could learn and adapt, power sources that could last for thousands of years. Look at this, Herin pointed to a particular section. They encoded their entire scientific knowledge into these ships. Physics, medicine, engineering, everything they had discovered. But they also included safeguards. Safeguards? Do-1 asked, his outer mandibles clicking with interest. The knowledge can only be accessed in stages, as humanity proves ready for each level. These ships weren't just meant to preserve information. They were programmed to be teachers, guardians until their descendants were ready to reclaim their heritage. The room's lighting shifted, and new images appeared. They showed humanity's slow rebuilding after the collapse, their gradual return to technology. The ships had been watching all along, monitoring their progress. They knew they would rise again, Herin explained, her voice soft with admiration. The fleet was programmed to wait until humanity reached a certain level of development. Not just technological development, ethical and social development too. Do-1's antennae moved in a pattern of understanding, not a museum piece. An inheritance. Exactly, Herin nodded. Each ship contains different aspects of their knowledge. Some hold scientific data, others cultural records. Together, they're a complete archive of humanity's first golden age. She brought up another set of images, showing the fleet's defensive capabilities. The advanced technology we witnessed, it's just a fraction of what these ships can do. But they're programmed to use minimum force to protect without destroying. Like parents watching over children, Do-One mused, keeping them safe while letting them learn and grow on their own. The room's lighting pulsed in what seemed like agreement. The ship's AI had been listening, understanding their conversation. "There's more," Herin said, her scales brightening with excitement. "The fleet's ultimate purpose isn't just to preserve knowledge. It's meant to help humanity avoid the mistakes that led to their first collapse. The ships contain warnings, lessons learned at great cost." Do-One looked out through a viewing panel at the other ships of the ancient fleet. "All this time, we thought we were discovering history. Instead, we were part of their plan. They knew someday someone would find these ships. And now we have to decide what to do with this knowledge." Herin added, "These ships belong to humanity. We're just the messengers who found them." The chamber's lights shifted again, and a new message appeared. Purpose understood. Proceeding with Protocol Omega. Contact with descendants. Do-One and Herin watched as the ancient fleet began a new sequence of operations. They were about to witness the reunion of humanity with their forgotten past and the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The insurance policy created by ancient humanity was about to pay off, not just for Earth, but for all civilization. The real question was, were modern humans ready for what their ancestors had left them? 5 years had passed since the discovery of the Guardian fleet. The Earth's night sky now shimmered with new patterns as the ancient vessels orbited their ancestral home, their hulls gleaming with soft blue energy that could be seen from the surface. Do-One stood at the window of the newly constructed Galactic Embassy, his antennae moving gently as he watched human crews training with their inherited vessels. As Earth's first extraterrestrial ambassador, he had witnessed an unprecedented transformation in human society. Still watching the training exercises, Herin asked, joining him at the window. Her scales had adopted Earth's blue sky color, a sign of her comfort on this world. "They learned so quickly," Do-One replied, observing as a human training vessel performed maneuvers that had taken Confederation pilots decades to master. The ships respond to them naturally, as if they truly were meant for each other. The Guardian fleet's eye had made first contact with Earth's leaders with careful precision, revealing humanity's forgotten heritage gradually to prevent social upheaval. The ships shared their knowledge in measured steps, helping humanity adapt to each new revelation. "The Confederation Council meeting went well today," Herin reported. "They've officially recognized humanity's claim to all technology contained within the fleet, though I suspect they had little choice after seeing what these ships can do." Do-One nodded, remembering their own first encounter with the fleet's capabilities. The humans have been wise in how they've handled this inheritance. They're following the ship's guidance, learning the lessons of their ancestors. Outside, a new group of human cadets arrived for training. The ancient vessels had created a teaching program, combining historical knowledge with practical experience. Each student learned not just how to operate the technology, but why it was created and the responsibilities it carried. "Look at this," Herin said, bringing up a holographic display. "The first joint research project is showing remarkable results. Human scientists working with Confederation researchers have already made breakthroughs in understanding the fleet's power systems." The screen showed images of new hybrid technologies, combining the best of modern innovation with recovered ancient principles. The humans had insisted on sharing their discoveries, turning their inheritance into a bridge between species. "They're not just reclaiming their past," Do-One observed. "They're building something new with it. Something better." A flash of light drew their attention back to the window. One of the ancient ships was demonstrating its space-folding technology, teaching human crews the principles of advanced space travel. The sight still filled Do-One with wonder, even after all these years. "We thought we were discovering history," he told Herin, his voice thoughtful. "Instead, we were witnessing its return. But it's more than that now. It's the beginning of something none of us could have imagined. The Guardian fleet had become a symbol of humanity's resilience, a bridge between their forgotten past and promising future. But it had also become something more, a catalyst for change throughout known space. New academies were being built on Earth, combining human creativity with ancient wisdom. The fleet's AI continued its role as teacher and guardian, ensuring that the power it shared would be used wisely. As night fell over the embassy, the ancient ship's energy patterns created beautiful auroras in Earth's atmosphere. It was a reminder of how much had changed and how much was yet to come. The mystery of humanity's first golden age had been solved, but it was just the beginning. A new chapter in galactic history was being written, one that would be remembered for millennia to come. Du-1 and Harin turned away from the window, heading to their next diplomatic meeting. They had their own role to play in this new era, helping to guide the relationship between humanity and the Confederation. In the sky above, the Guardian fleet continued its eternal vigil, no longer waiting, but actively participating in humanity's next great journey. The ancient humans who had created this legacy would have been proud to see their descendants not just reclaiming their heritage, but using it to forge a better future for all. This was more than a victory for humanity. It was a triumph of hope, wisdom, and the unwavering belief that civilization could rise again, stronger and wiser than before. Thanks for watching.